Greetings and welcome to Association Rockstars, where we hear about the journey and insights of amazing nonprofit and association executives and partners who are building the industry of tomorrow. My name is Lowell Aplebaum, the CEO of Vista Cova, where we partner with organizations on strategy, visioning, and governance facilitation. It's my absolute pleasure to have with me today Joseph Jones, PhD, MPA, IOM. Joseph is the Chief of Staff for the President at Des Moines University, and he's the former Executive Director of the Harkin Institute for Public Policy and Citizen Engagement at Drake University. He's a community volunteer, a local elected official, as well as a nonprofit organization board leader. So he has all the check marks you could possibly want for local involvement. He's a lifelong introvert, spends his quiet time with his 7-year-old Newfoundland and an assortment of backyard chickens, and we'll find out if they have names. Joseph, so good to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that great introduction.
Absolutely. Well, everyone that we speak to, we are talking to because they have demonstrated and continue to demonstrate leadership in their organization and the larger nonprofit community. And so a question we always love to start with is just a self-reflective one. Clearly, you have strengths that you bring to the table. What would you identify as one of your superpowers?
Well, I appreciate this question because I often think of just doing the things means that I'm doing the work, right? And so identifying it or labeling it, I think that one that I would strongly identify with is mindfulness, my ability to be mindful in many different situations and making people feel heard and understood. I think has really served me well in my leadership journey and my work in the nonprofit world.
Do you find that ability, right, the mindfulness, is something that was inherent and you were born with? Is it something you saw demonstrated? Is it something, I mean, you have some good letters after your name there. Is it something like you learned in like a formal path? Like, how did it develop?
Yeah, I think that I think it was inherent. I think that there was just that's my way of operating and trying to decipher the world. I think I've learned to hone that skill in a more precise and deliberate way, but I think it's just kind of my natural personality to be that way.
So when you're mentoring others, right, or you're supervising others along the way, if it's not as inherent in someone that you're helping, how do you direct them, right? How is it that someone could be more mindful if it's not just something innate?
Sure. I think sometimes it's just a matter of stopping for a beat and thinking, okay, well, this is what I believe, but what's someone else thinking, or what was their mindset in which they made that decision or made that comment? And it's the old adage of putting yourself in someone else's shoes and understanding the environment from which they come, but also where that particular action is coming from at that moment. And so reminding people of that, reminding people that when they're in crisis and they want to be heard, just like someone that they're supervising or interacting with wants to be heard. And so just giving that pause in your reactions and helping people to understand that that's, it's natural to react a certain way, but it's also natural to add to your repertoire this ability to take a step back and look at the full picture.
So we have many who join us that are in our community that either are in or aspiring to C-suite positions. As you're the chief of staff to the president of a university, right? What has surprised you about the role you have to play as the chief of staff?
Well, I think, as we all move through our leadership journey, particularly in the nonprofit world, I think a lot of people are used to having several different roles, oftentimes at once, right? Where you have to have 3 or 4 different jobs. And the chief of staff role is one of the ultimate support roles. I've been in positions where I've been the final decision maker, and I've been in roles where I've only taken orders, essentially. And so this is one where I spend time advising and thinking through certain things. It's wanting to make sure that my leadership, my boss, has the information she needs, has the support she needs, and it's not about me or my success. My work involves helping her to be successful and helping the organization to be successful. So I get to be in the background this time around, and I relish that opportunity because I've had the great enjoyment of having several different types of jobs throughout my career, and having this experience is another one that helps to round out the way I see the world. And so I like the idea that I get to be in the support role, providing the information or the work or oversight that she's asked me to do and perform the job. So I get to execute on the vision, which is really a lot of fun.
I want to hear more about sort of the journey that led here, but I feel the need to ask, since you're talking about the pleasure you take in this support role, but a C-suite support role, right? I mean, what do you find is your approach to managing up? Like, how do you learn how to best partner with the person that you're managing, right? How to learn what they need, for them to learn how you function. Like, how do you approach that? Because we were talking before, you've only been there since January, correct?
Right.
Right. So 9 months in, certainly not honeymoon period per se,
Right.
but you've had still learning each other, I imagine, to some extent.
Sure. And working for any leader requires, that you have a certain level of trust and understanding of how they work and operate. I think it's also really important, and one of the things that I've definitely learned to embrace over the years is, speaking truth to power. I've always worked for elected officials or leaders in organizations, and being able to have those conversations where you are saying the things that may not be comfortable, but they need to be said, and someone needs to at least address them. But I think the other thing that I've learned to love through watching some of the leaders I've worked with is being comfortable with the things that I don't know, being comfortable with saying out loud, I don't know. I'll figure it out, or maybe we can find someone who does know. But I think early in my career, I wanted so much to prove myself that I would just devour information, trying to think of every possible angle that might be asked and thing that I might need to do. And now I feel comfortable knowing that I've amassed a lot of information, and some of it's really random and useless, only good for trivia on a Wednesday night. And the holes that are left to be filled. And so sometimes when I'm asked something that I don't know, it actually feels good to say I don't know. Like I don't have to expend the energy thinking really hard about it or trying to dig up something. I think I've gotten smarter on how I find the answers, or how I connect with the people who do know how to do the thing. But it's not a personal loss to me to not know something.
So there's a really nice frame of professional maturation, right, in what you just described, from the drive to need to be the repository of all things known, to having the intelligence to recognize where you can go to find that knowledge.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how sort of your professional journey started. I mean, along the way, you have a master's, you have a doctorate, right? Was it after the doctorate was really when work life started? Was it in between? What did the career path look like?
Well, I was the first generation and the first person in my family to go to college. And so once I did complete my undergraduate degree in economics, I decided that, the next thing was to go off into the workforce. And I always knew that I wanted to work in government and politics. That was really where my my passion lie, and it had to do with public policy. And so I left college and went to Atlanta to go work for the state of Georgia, working for the state auditor doing performance audits and writing program evaluations of government programs, helping the legislature understand whether or not programs and entities were meeting their legislative intent, whether or not they're being economically efficient, all those types of things. And I really enjoyed that. It taught me a lot about understanding the impact that government can have on people's lives, but also understanding the game of telephone that goes from a legislative body creating something to how it's actually enacted and used on the ground. And so from there, I came to Iowa on a really short stint. I'd never been to Iowa before, and I came to Iowa through a series of thinking I was going to go to Minnesota or Maine, but I'd never been to any of those states before. And back then, I still had a goal of seeing all 50 states. And so I was able to take a leave of absence from my job to go work on a campaign, and I came to Iowa to do that. And then once that was over, I went back to my job in Atlanta and decided just a few months back into it that I really liked being in Iowa better. And so I quit my job, moved back to Iowa, and continued to work, this time in politics more, working for a political party as a political director, and then eventually for a nonprofit agency helping kids with recidivism for being suspended from high school, and I taught GED at night. And then I went to go work in the governor's office here in Iowa, doing communications. So it was during that time that I decided to go back to grad school and get a master's degree in public admin. I couldn't decide what type of graduate degree I wanted. I knew that I was interested in lots of different things. It could have been law, it could have been more economics, it could have been an MBA. But I decided that my passion was for public service and for the nonprofit sector and helping people to get the services and other things that they needed. And so I thought that whether or not I worked in the nonprofit world or in government world or in education, it would always be connected to something having to do with public admin. So that's why I got the master's in public admin. Continued to work in government in different policy areas, including going to DC and working in the US Senate for a while. And then came back to Iowa once my boss retired from the Senate. And that's when I entered Chamber of Commerce world and kind of the chamber/association world. And that's how I got introduced to IOM. So I went out to Institute. Mine was West, so out in Los Angeles, and worked on my IOM for the next several years. Ended up switching jobs just toward the end of me finishing my IOM, and I moved to higher ed, running a public policy think tank. And that think tank worked on issues dealing with disability policy, with health and wellness policy, with retirement security issues, and employee and labor issues. And I was hiring these research fellows from all over the world to work on projects, and many of them held doctorates and they were doing all these great studies. And I thought, this is one of those times where I can give myself something. I think I'd been spending my entire career, my life, doing things for other people, whether it be through my work or through my volunteer work. But I was going to do something just for me that was going to help me in my job, but just give me a lot of insight to my way of thinking and other ways of thinking and analyzing things. And so that's when I decided to start my doctorate. As I was hiring people, and I was thinking, I'm asking people to do these things and draw up these studies, and it'd be helpful to me to just understand how they do it. But in that process, it was one of those things where I was not doing the doctorate because I needed to get a doctorate or because I wanted a promotion or a certain job. I was really doing it for the pure opportunity to gain knowledge for myself. Yeah. And that felt really great. And so I did that hand in hand with working at the think tank as the executive director. So that's a long story, but that's kind of how it all kind of came together. And a lot of I never stopped working to go to school because I couldn't afford that. And then I lost the mindset to be able to do that anyway. And so I always made it a part of my kind of constant lifelong learning.
Gosh, there's like 10 different questions in there. Let's go. Let's pause for a moment. IOM, that program that the U.S. Chamber runs. Did you do it? Often it's done over 4 years. I'm not sure if you did it over that. You did it.
I did.
Cycle. For those who haven't heard about it or haven't experienced it, can you tell us just a little bit in terms of from your own experience, if it did, how it helped you in the journey? Like what would you reflect about the IOM?
I think it gave me a lot of different tools. IOM is one of those things that helps association and chamber leaders to understand the full width and breadth of what the nonprofit sector does and how to run a really great organization. And it hits on all aspects of it. So whether it be membership or financial management or board leadership or interacting with your team or government relations, many of those things that then help the current and future leader to attain those skills that they need to continue to lead and feel strong about it. It also builds a network for you of other leaders who work in the association and chamber world and other organizations throughout the country, and gives you an opportunity to have a circle outside of your local regional area that you can talk to. Oftentimes we live in small enough places and communities where, if you have a problem that you need to discuss, you're discussing with people who know all the players. And so it's helpful to get some perspective outside of that. And so that's another part of it. After I finished my IOM, I've gone back every year now to teach in the program, government relations, because that's my passion and my area of expertise. And so it's been really good for me, even to say to the folks in the class, like, I know that you might not like the idea of advocacy or government relations, or it might not even be your job within your organization, but one day you're going to lead an organization that is going to have that, and you need to understand the importance of it and how it can be used as a tool to help you achieve your goal and fulfill your mission. And so I enjoy connecting that way too, and giving back to the program that gave me some of the best professional friends I've had, but also some really good tips in my career growth.
Mm. Well, that both paints a picture of the impact, and I love that you're giving back to it from the places you're involved. It doesn't surprise me. Tell me a little bit about being a local elected official.
Yeah.
What made that decision? What that journey's been like?
Yeah, so after years of either working on campaigns or trying to convince people that they should run because it's important to represent their community, I was presented with an opportunity where there were some open seats on my city council, and I was finally in a job that would allow me to be able to run for something. Many of the jobs I had, it was not the best idea for me to run for office and hold that. And so I was in a position to be able to do it. And I realized, as my friends and colleagues were saying to me, this is kind of your put up or shut up. You've been telling people to do this yourself for so many times. So this is your opportunity. Are you going to do it? And I decided to do it because I liked the direction our city was going, and I knew that we can continue to do some great things. And I wanted to be a part of presenting solutions and helping us to achieve some of our goals. And so I put my name out there and I ran, and it was an interesting experience because I saw in myself all the things that I found funny or comical, I guess, about candidates my entire life. I became that person who really wanted to see my yard sign someplace, which is ridiculous, or was concerned that someone else had more signatures on something than I did. And we're all human. So seeing that, getting the experience of going door to door and really seeing my neighbors and hearing about their issues was really rewarding to me. And it's now my second term, and I've really enjoyed the opportunity. The first time I ran, there were 9 of us running for 3 spots, and I got the 3rd spot by 1 vote on election night. By the time we did the canvass, I think there were probably 16 votes, but anyway, it was close. And when I ran for re-election, there were only, I think, 2 of us for 3 spots, so that meant that we at least made a difference in how we were engaging, and people didn't see the reason to be up in arms and want to run. So actually got more votes than anybody else on the ballot that time. So that was fun too.
Yeah, well, sounds like a path of success.
Yeah.
I saved the fun question. I want to ask this. You're at this moment in life where you're the chief of staff to the president of a university. You've been the executive director of Policy Institute, right? You're an elected official. You teach, you volunteer. If you were talking to 18-year-old you, what's a piece of advice you would give yourself before you've walked this journey of learning and growth and contribution and success and struggle, I'm sure, along the way too, right? But all the pieces. Looking back, what would you tell your younger self?
I tell my younger self to remember to take a deep breath, not to forget where he came from, and be true to yourself.
I like that. All right, the fun question, because we were talking about it before. You shared that you've been wearing bow ties for how long?
Oh gosh, since 1992.
All right, so give me sort of the top 1 or 2 bow ties, your top 1 or 2 favorite bow ties that you've worn. Because you were mentioning you had some different ones.
I do. I have a really what I call the interview bow tie, and I think I end up wearing it anytime I have most of the time when I have a job interview, and it's just a really pretty tie that I happen to see in Rome, and I bought it from this store that it just stood out to me. So that's a favorite of mine. I have a really good friend who makes clothes for American Girl dolls, and sometimes out of the scraps, she'll make bow ties just for fun. And so I have a matching bow tie with my goddaughter's American Girl doll dress and my goddaughter's pajamas. And so that
That's
one's kind
amazing.
of a fun one too. Yeah.
I love that. Well, time goes by quickly on here always, but we've heard so much about the journey that's gotten you to this point and where you are. As you think about the future far, far down the road where uh, perhaps you're going into bow tie making as you step back from public or professional life. When you look back, what do you hope your legacy will be for the future?
Um, I hope it's a legacy of inspiring others to serve their communities and to give back. I've always derived a lot of my enjoyment from helping other people achieve their goals and doing things that are helpful to give back to the greater community. So I hope others are inspired or at least led by those thoughts to do that a little bit with their time as well.
I love that. Joseph, it's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you a little bit better, to hear your journey, your story, and to have that hopefully inspire others on theirs as well. Thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
And for everyone tuning in, thanks as always to Amy, who's been chatting with you on all the social media channels, and to everyone who tunes in time and time again as we together share the learning and the journey as we learn from some amazing people in the nonprofit field. Until next time, Association Rock On.